Hello, everyone. Welcome back to my channel. I've got another guest today.
Hello.
Yay! Hey, Rumbi.
Hey, Anna.
Rumbi is my friend. We've known each other for more than 20 years. And today we're going to be continuing this rejection thing because I think we have a lot of stories to share on rejection, but Rumbi is actually going to be telling us how to deal with this rejection and help us. So what's up, Rumbi?
Hey,
Oh,
Anna.
FYI, Rumbi has an NGO called Heal My Heart. So she's the best person to be talking to because we need healing. And Rumbi is going to be doing that for us. So to start off, Rumbi, welcome. Today, we're also going to talk about trauma. So let's start there, Rumbi, to say what is trauma.
Well, thank you, Anna, for having me. Such an honor to be on your channel, girlfriend, and well done for the good work that you're doing. When you listen, like, this is indeed candid converse, really. So trauma really, in the simplest way we can put it, is an emotional reaction to a drastic event. Okay, what kind of drastic events are we talking about? It could be an accident, it could be the death of a loved one, it could be rape, or it could be bullying. We can also say it can be classified into three. We've got acute trauma, which is related to a once-off event. Okay, we've got complex trauma, which is when it becomes multiple, over multiple occurrences of trauma over a prolonged time, a prolonged period. This English. Then we've got complex trauma, where it's varied forms of trauma over prolonged period. So this is now like different kinds of trauma repeatedly happening over a long time to a person. Yeah.
That is interesting, especially the chronic trauma, if I'm right.
Chronic, it has just done is graduated. Okay, we graduated from acute and we're just experiencing a whole lot more trauma. Yeah.
What are like some of the symptoms that you can see to say, you know what, I've actually got trauma?
Well, how does trauma affect us?
Yes,
trauma
exactly.
affects us in a lot of ways. Let me actually, I've written it down somewhere such that you just get it into the context that people can relate to. Well, it can affect your thoughts. All right. If a traumatic occurrence happens, all right, you're going to have intrusive thoughts, intrusive memories. You know how it is when, well, the meaning of intrusive really is just like having an intruder on your thoughts. So you're busy sitting, or somewhere out of the blue, whatever, you just start thinking of this negative thing that happened to you. Okay. Sometimes you can't remember what happened, like the important details of what happens, because your mind blocks it as a coping mechanism. So that's also a way it can affect your thoughts. In terms of your feelings, sometimes, there's disassociation, let's say like that, dissociation, where you feel like you are in the moment of your traumatic event, yet you are not there. I hope that's clear. Like you start going through the feelings, the reactions. This is all inside your body. This is all inside your mind. You're just sitting there, but you're kind of having all this going on over and over and over again, but nothing is happening at that time. Okay. Then sometimes you've got psychological stress, of course. Then in terms of your behavior, you start avoiding people, you start avoiding places, you start avoiding things that remind you of that event. So you'd be like avoiding the triggers. Okay. But sometimes people won't know what's happening with you. They just start seeing you withdrawing. They just start seeing you being antisocial. And all they just wonder is, what's going on? But no one actually ever then checks what's going on beyond that. Yeah. Then of course your body is just gonna be on let's say more on edge, because your body alarm is now just going to be more sensitive to kind of protect you from that trauma. So basically, those are in short, the effects, or some of the effects, of course, because we did not cover them extensively because there are so many. Yeah.
Yeah. And you recently watched my video yesterday on rejection, right? And I would love to know how long-term rejection can contribute to trauma.
Okay, let's start this. Rejection itself can be like a form of trauma. It can be a traumatic event. It can start off as acute, like a once-off distressful event, like you had really had this job interview that, or whatever, or school interview that you wanted to get, that you went for, to this place you're dying to get into, and they say no. Okay, after that, so that's acute. Let's say it keeps happening over and over again. You want this job really bad. I mean, speaking of it, I remember there's a time, I was not getting a job. I was not getting what I wanted, and life was just not really going the way I wanted. And funny enough, with rejection, every time you start piecing all the little incidences you have been rejected, I know,
right?
You'd be like, but last time they said no. The other time that someone else said no. You start piecing those things together, and once you start doing that, we become more anxious. Okay, anxiety really is just us being in our head, being in our thoughts a little bit more than we actually need to, dwelling in those negative thoughts and incidences, and so. You find, okay, so I also wasn't getting online work. So I was like, oh my gosh, like really, am I that much of a failure that no one in person wants me, no one online wants me? So already, see, I've now got this thing that I'm now carrying of all this rejection, of which is just in one line. But then in life, we've been rejected in so many other spheres, be it relationships, be it whatever. And, it's crazy. It's really, really crazy. But yes, it can be such a traumatic event for somebody.
Do you know what I was actually thinking of? Growing up, we actually didn't realize, okay, maybe some did, to say we're rejected a lot. When it came to picking teams, when we'd be playing another and everything, and you're always the last one to be picked. Say, every time they're going to pick people. And this was like a daily thing.
Yeah.
And imagine how some people felt. And then later on, you're now looking for a job. You're going through the same process, like what you were saying, being on a waiting list. And then you're called to say, I'm sorry, but you did not make it. And I actually just remembered the first job I got. And I thought, oh my gosh, this is my dream job. I was fired, where you're told the contract is not being extended. And I'm like, I've always this job, and I think, like you were saying, sometimes you go back to all the other times that you've been rejected. But I would also like to know, Rumbi, how does trauma affect our relationships?
Okay, like what you're saying, and I think also that daily rejection every time on the playing field at school, because either you're overweight or you're too slow or you just don't do it quickly or whatnot. It just, it's some things that we actually don't put to heart. We don't put to mind until much, much later. You still got the scar, but you don't know what the wound is at the end of the day. So you find things, let's say that's just innocent playtime, all right? Let's say that. Then you've got like your relationships. Then you've got these complex work stuff that happens. So sometimes you are accepted, sometimes you're not accepted. Sometimes you've got constant rejection, and then sometimes you've got constant abuse and neglect, as you go through. All these forms of trauma, so to say, or all these forms of treatment bring about certain reactions into our lives. Like for a person who is so used to rejection and unresponsiveness, they hide their feelings. Okay, they tend to be very evasive with sharing their feelings. They tend to push people away. They keep a lot of secrets. Okay, and then they shut down when people are emotional with them because they have been rejected. That's all that they know, and they don't know. So for you, you're overwhelming them already. That's their behavior. So you can imagine someone in a relationship, even be it a work team, someone who cannot express, someone who's always keeping secrets. They're hard to work with. So we can just say they're just hard to work with, but we don't know that it's you know, like a permanent scar. And then there's people who have persistent neglect and abuse, like they've got fear of intimacy. You know, when you're starting to connect with somebody, they, as soon as that feeling or that occurrence starts happening, they push away. But then they're also very scared to be alone. Okay. Those people also have trust issues. They, you know, when someone is always on edge, go, oh my gosh, this person is going to do this person's going to do this. It's because of persistent neglect and abuse. We've always felt neglected. So we've got trust issues because we don't know what the next person is going to do that could hurt us, and we don't want to overinvest. They also close off emotionally. Like they just don't want to go there, also because of the trust issues and the fear of getting hurt. They're terrified of rejection, like what we just said just now, and they are comfortable showing emotion. So you'll find that a lot of people who've got trauma, they have this thing of not wanting to show emotion because they don't want to be vulnerable. They don't want to show weakness. And then there's also those with the fluctuation between acceptance and rejection. This one I think is also very important to say, because sometimes you feel you're good enough and sometimes you feel you're not so good enough. So you find these people are very clingy, okay, whether in relationships or friends. Have you ever found out you don't want to share a friend? Like, I know I had those moments. I'll be honest. Like, I can't understand why, Anna, you now have to be friends with Ruth or with Angela. You are my friend. You are my friend. You know, kind of thing.
I actually had a lot of friends like that, and I used to wonder what is going on. Like, I'm enough for everyone, or you know, someone is mad that okay, so I've been seeing you hang out with this person, and I'm like, it doesn't stop our friendship. Oh, so that makes a lot of sense.
It's a form of trauma. It's because a person is so used to rejection and also acceptance, so they want to hold on to what is good, what good that they have in their lives. So, but you understand what can happen when someone is too clingy. Okay, they're also very watchful of changes. Like you can be monitoring when they're in a relationship. To see if my partner starts doing 1, 2, 3, it's over. It's over. There's something going on, and sometimes it leads us to paranoia because sometimes a person can just come home late, either you're married or you're staying together, whatever, or a person just does funny movements with their phone for some odd reason we don't know. But because you're piecing 1 + 1 + 1 + 1 in because of whatever has happened in your past, it's it's a whole different story. Of course, something about people with trauma is they've got low self-esteem and they've got a high level of emotional dysfunction. So they can be very moody as well. So I think it's also very, very important to see our reactions in relationships.
That is interesting. I'd love to know something. I actually used to do it. Maybe let me know if it's actually trauma. Like whenever my mom would be late, like she goes on a trip and then she takes longer to come back, I'd literally plan her funeral in my head. You know, like I've actually buried her. I've done everything, and I go through the same thing with my husband. To say sometimes I'm so worried if he doesn't respond, and I'm thinking maybe he's had an accident or something like that. So after you just shared that, I was thinking to myself, do I need to get help?
Well, Anna, you are exhibiting signs. Those are signs of anxiety, really, because you're in your own head. And like we said, anxiety is just being in your own head too much. But one thing I'll tell you is you're not alone. I've done that many times before. My dad used to travel up and down from Harare to South Africa quite a lot. There is a time he actually had an accident. And I think the car, it didn't turn over, but it turned on the side. So I think that's what triggered it, those kind of thoughts that every time he had to travel, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to get there. Oh my gosh, what's going to happen in the road? It's also happened with me and my husband as well. Whenever he's on the road, I'm thinking, you know, I've already started planning, okay, so what am I going to do with the kids? What am I, is our life policy in place? I mean, those kind of things, like it goes that far. This is now beyond the burying. I've already buried, I've finished. But I'm now trying to plan my own life to see, okay, what's going to happen, etc., etc. So you find it's a buildup of anxiety caused by that one traumatic event. So something could have triggered it. Maybe you, like I'm saying, either a relative had an accident or someone you know had an accident or something like that. So that is just a form of acute trauma. So it's anxiety built from acute trauma, yeah.
Interesting. Then another thing I wanted to ask you, we obviously come from a culture where men are told you don't cry from a young age. And when I was trying to research on this topic, I found that 75% of the people who commit suicide are actually men, and we are always telling them, no crying, it makes you weak, you can't be vulnerable, but it seems that we're actually causing bigger problems. So how can we change that? Like how can men start dealing with their trauma, and how can we allow them to be vulnerable? Because some of us are raising boys now and we wouldn't want the same experience for them, but how can we improve on that?
Like you said, the gender the gender roles that have been applied to our culture have always made the man to be this strong block, this strong iron that can't be weak, that can't crumble. But if you see, we are subjected to the same things. Imagine if you and your brother face rejection even at school acceptance. Okay, you're going through the same thing. But except that you are allowed to cry about it and he is not. Okay. True. Boys are also facing abuse. Okay. Like sexual abuse, physical abuse, be it from women out there or even their helpers. I mean, there are so many cases now that the helpers in the house are abusing children. But you'll find when this man now starts acting out or starts crying about it, they're told, toughen up. Or they tell themselves, look, I can't crumble. Or they sometimes don't even know what is, like I'm saying, a lot of the cases of trauma, we don't know what is the cause. We just see the symptoms. And they start acting out, but we just need them to be a man, to be strong about it, and they tend to disassociate a lot. So you find a lot of men then, like who have been exposed to sexual abuse, they just then go start sleeping around, because to them, there's no physical attachment to sex. There's no emotional attachment. It's just sex, just because J. But I'm not saying all men who do that are like that. But in some, but in some cases, you do find it's also caused by traumatic events. Some also just hop in and out of relationships looking for healing. Okay, you're looking for healing, but no one is built to heal you. Okay, yeah. But so you've got too many expectations. So you find Anna can't heal you. Okay, I'm jumping to Rumbi. Rumbi can't heal you. Okay, I'm jumping to Susan. But everyone is just trying to live their own lives, and you've got your own baggage, that kind of thing. But you also find that one other thing that affects us is the way our backgrounds, how we were brought up. If parents were not present, or we were hopping from household to household and we're not shown affection as children, we don't know how to show it. That's already traumatic for us. We exhibit it in anger, we exhibit it in shying away, we exhibit it in not trusting people, thinking, that kind of thing. So also our backgrounds are very, very important.
That is interesting. And I was actually reading something that was saying that sometimes we think our babies, when they're young, they don't understand anything, but they're affected more than the ones that are older. And I found that interesting. And I thought childhood trauma, we're just thinking, they're just 3 years or something, they're not seeing anything. But it says they struggle later more as adults than those who are 10 or 12 years, who we actually think they can speak back, so they're actually seeing something happen. And I wanted to ask you to say, how do we get help for this trauma? There are different types of trauma, like you mentioned, but I think a lot of people have childhood trauma and they don't realize it. And it's now that we talk about some things, because obviously things have changed. And a lot of people are realizing, I went through this when I was young, like we were also talking to say, that rejection, we just didn't know how to deal with it, Yeah. So can you give us practical ways to deal with this trauma, or any other type of help we can get?
Okay, before we get into the help, I'll also touch on why we are affected so much by the things that happen in our childhood. if you research on the function of the brain, there's the various wavelengths at which it works at. So from the age of 2 to 6, it functions on the theta. Okay, at this place we do not. Okay, let me say the brain is easily programmable. That's like when you're dreaming, you know, when you're dreaming, you see a flying dog, you don't really question it, you know, unlike when you're awake. So at this stage, you are, it's like you're easily programmable, but you don't question. Okay, so if your father is angry one day, you ask for a toy and he's had his own whatever, and then he lashes out and says, you know what, you're not getting this toy, you don't deserve it. Okay. You've just asked for a toy, you've just nagged him for a toy at the supermarket, but because he said you don't deserve it, you're just gonna feel sad. But because you are at that easily programmable stage, those words are now have been programmed into your subconscious. Okay, so later you're not going to be you're now operating from a place of I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it, I don't deserve it. So when you get abused, it's like I don't deserve anything good. Whatever bad thing could happen, I don't deserve it. So trauma, so those kind of traumatic events. So you find traumatic events like when, let's say, you're raped or abused at that childhood age, it's easily, and it does more harm than when you're slightly older. I'm not saying that when we're older, it doesn't affect us. Yes, it does affect you, but you'll see why I'm saying when you've got things that have happened in your childhood, why they affect you so much when you're older. And then in terms of getting help, okay, you'll find like now, only because now we're talking about certain things, you know, we're now realizing, oh, we've got this trauma, but imagine those people like in the older generations who didn't know what they were going through. They just thought, you know, whatever. Okay, but let's say let's start by minimizing media exposure of what happened to us. Okay, you find whether it be movies, whether it be clips, whether it be music, whatever that relates to the traumatic event, let's minimize that, because we do not want to expose ourselves more and overwhelm ourselves with the feelings that surround that. Number 2, we have to accept our feelings and acknowledge our feelings, because you'll be like, you know what, I really feel like A, B, C because of 1, 2, 3. Acknowledge it and accept it. And dealing with trauma means you have to deal with difficult emotions, difficult thoughts that may overwhelm you, but you have to be prepared to walk that journey. You have to be prepared to go and forgive the people that caused you that pain. Okay, so without forgiveness, it is very, very difficult to move on. So it's not a matter of you reaching out, because sometimes you may not even know where this person is, but it's now saying, you know what, I release Anna from causing me this pain. I release Anna from this, and forgiving them. Okay, then also challenge yourself from a position of helplessness. Go and do something that makes you feel good. Help a neighbor, give a smile, donate some blood, you know, something, help out at a home, whatever we can do now. Help someone with a hamper basket, something that will make you feel, you know, like that, but without, it's not from a place of pride, it's not from a place of ego, but of serving somebody else. And also exercise, burn out the adrenaline, increase the endorphins in your body. It will help you feel good. Okay, reach out to others. Do not keep withdrawing and isolating yourself, because you're going to be more and more in your thoughts. More anxiety is going to get to chronic anxiety, which could result in someone getting depressive. Okay, and then make stress reduction a priority, because once you've got trauma and you're focusing on it, you're going to have increased levels of stress. Make an effort to reduce your stress levels. So light a scented candle, slow down, think of your favorite place, you know, a place where you feel safe, a place where you're happy. Visit those thoughts and do those practices. Take a walk, you know, that's going to calm you down. And try and sleep well and eat healthy. Those are very, very important, especially when you're stressed. You tend to have problems sleeping, but there's sleep exercise that we can use to to invoke better sleep. And then lastly, if above all else nothing works, okay, after you've made an intentional decision to deal with it and you've done everything that you can, seek professional help. There are professionals out there to help you figure it all out so you don't have to walk this journey alone.
Thank you so much. Do give us some of the links in case people actually want to know where to get the help, especially. Yeah, that would be nice. But thank you so much, Rumbi. I'll definitely call you back because I would love to know how to deal with childhood trauma mostly. You talked about how we actually talk to children, and I would love for us to do more on that so we actually know how to respond in times that we don't have money. Because for sure, sometimes you just want them to keep quiet. And you just say, you know what, whatever, and sometimes you don't realize how much we're, creating scars and affecting them, and they end up having emotional wounds. So thank you so much, Rumbi. And I hope this video has helped you people to also know how to deal with trauma, to actually sit down and reflect to see if you have not been affected in one way or the other. And Rumbi is always willing to help. I will put her link of how you can get in touch with her and get the help that you need. Thank you, Rumbi. Do not forget to like, share, and subscribe if you're enjoying these videos. Bye.